Running sneakers. They are the foundation on which the entire modern sneaker industry was built. Before running shoes existed as a commercial product, athletes trained in whatever flat, simple footwear was available. It was the running boom of the 1970s in the United States that changed everything. Millions of people began jogging as a form of exercise, and the demand for purpose-built footwear exploded almost overnight. Nike, Adidas, and New Balance all grew significantly during this period by developing shoes specifically engineered for forward motion. A running sneaker is built around cushioning in the midsole to absorb the repeated impact of the foot striking the ground, a lightweight upper to reduce fatigue, and a flexible sole that bends naturally with the foot's movement. Today, they are one of the most technically complex consumer products manufactured at scale, with entire research divisions dedicated to shaving fractions of a second from race times. Basketball sneakers. They were shaped by the sport they were designed for, a game that demands sudden changes of direction, explosive jumps, and long periods of lateral movement on a hard court surface. The ankle collar is higher than most other sneaker types, providing support around the ankle joint during the kind of cuts and pivots that basketball requires. Converse produced the Chuck Taylor All-Star in 1917, and for decades, it was the dominant shoe on courts across America. Nike's introduction of the Air Jordan 1 in 1985, worn by Michael Jordan during his rookie season, fundamentally changed the relationship between athletic footwear and popular culture. A shoe became a cultural object that people wanted to own, regardless of whether they ever stepped onto a basketball court. That shift is still being felt today in how sneakers are marketed, collected, and valued. High-top sneakers. They extend above the ankle, covering and supporting the ankle joint in a way that low and mid-top shoes do not. The design originated in sport, where the additional coverage was intended to reduce the risk of ankle sprains. Chuck Taylor All-Stars established the high-top silhouette in basketball, and it remained the dominant court shoe shape for much of the 20th century. Outside of sport, high tops carry a distinct visual weight. They are more assertive than a low top, adding structure and presence to the lower leg. They became deeply embedded in hip-hop and streetwear culture through the 1980s and 1990s and have remained a consistent presence in fashion ever since, worn more often as a style statement than for any athletic purpose. Low-top sneakers. They sit below the ankle and are the most common sneaker silhouette in everyday wear. The lower profile makes them lighter, more flexible, and easier to pair with a wider variety of clothing than a high top. They work under jeans, trousers, shorts, and skirts with equal ease, which is a large part of why they dominate casual footwear globally. The simplest and most enduring low-top designs, the Stan Smith, the Air Force One, the Vans Old School, have barely changed in decades. That stability is not a failure of imagination, but a recognition that certain proportions and shapes simply work, and that the shoe's relationship with clothing around it is as important as the shoe itself. Skateboarding sneakers. They were developed for a sport that puts shoes through an unusual kind of stress, the repeated dragging of the toe and side of the foot across grip tape to control the board. This specific motion destroys ordinary shoes quickly, which is why skate shoes were engineered with reinforced toe boxes, thicker and more durable canvas or suede uppers, and flat, grippy rubber soles that allow the foot to feel the board beneath it. Vans, founded in California in 1966, became the defining brand of skate footwear and remains so today. DC shoes and etnies followed and shaped the aesthetic of skateboarding fashion through the 1990s and early 2000s. The chunky, durable quality of skate shoes crossed over into mainstream streetwear well beyond skating communities, and many of the silhouettes developed for the sport are now worn by people who have never touched a skateboard. Tennis sneakers. They were designed for a sport played on three very different surfaces: grass, clay, and hard court, and the shoe's construction reflects the demands of each. Tennis requires rapid lateral movement, sudden stops, and quick direction changes, which places particular stress on the outer edge of the sole. The herringbone pattern on the sole of many clay court shoes is designed specifically to grip the surface without collecting too much of it underfoot. Stan Smith, the Adidas shoe named after the American tennis champion, was introduced in the 1960s and became one of the best-selling shoes in history, not because people wore it to play tennis, but because its clean, minimal design translated effortlessly into everyday life. The same happened with the Nike Air Court series and various New Balance tennis models. Sport origin gave them credibility. Simplicity gave them longevity. Chunky sneakers. They are defined by an oversized, exaggerated sole that adds significant height and visual weight to the shoe. The aesthetic deliberately subverts the sleek, streamlined design principles that dominated sneaker design for decades before them. They emerged in the late 1980s through functional running and hiking technology. The New Balance 990 series, for example, was built for serious performance and happened to look substantial as a result. The look was later revived and amplified in the late 2000s by luxury fashion houses including Balenciaga, whose Triple S model brought chunky soles into high fashion at significant price points. The trend spread rapidly across the market at every price level. The chunky sneaker represents one of the clearest examples in footwear history of an aesthetic that was initially mocked becoming dominant almost overnight. Minimalist sneakers. They sit at the opposite end of the design spectrum, from chunky sneakers, thin soles, lightweight construction, and as little material between the foot and the ground as possible. The philosophy behind them draws from the barefoot running movement, which gained attention in the late 2000s following the publication of research suggesting that heavily cushioned shoes might alter natural running mechanics. Brands like Vibram, with its 5 fingers shoe, and Merrell with its barefoot line made minimalist footwear briefly mainstream. The science remains debated, but the aesthetic of a very flat, very simple shoe has remained appealing to a specific group of wearers who prefer a closer connection to the ground and a cleaner visual profile. Slip-on sneakers. They have no laces, relying instead on elastic panels at the sides or a simple opening that the foot slides into. Vans produced one of the most recognized slip-on sneakers in 1977, originally made for skaters who wanted a shoe they could put on and remove quickly. The absence of laces is both a practical and aesthetic choice. It creates a cleaner profile and removes a small but real daily inconvenience. Slip-on sneakers have moved well beyond their skate origins into casual, everyday wear, and various versions exist across every price point, from canvas Vans to leather Gucci loafer sneaker hybrids that blur the line between a sneaker and a dress shoe entirely. Luxury sneakers. They occupy a space that would have seemed contradictory a generation ago. A sneaker, which began as working-class athletic footwear, sold for prices that exceed many formal shoes. The shift began gradually in the 1980s as designer brands recognized the cultural power of sneaker culture, and accelerated dramatically in the 2000s when houses like Gucci, Prada, Balenciaga, and Louis Vuitton made sneakers a central part of their seasonal collections. The materials used in luxury sneakers, full-grain leathers, exotic skins, hand-finished edges, are genuinely different from mass-market production. But the price premium also reflects branding, scarcity, and the social signalling that has always been part of luxury goods. A pair of common projects. An Achilles low costs several $100s and looks nearly identical to many shoes that cost a fraction of the price. The difference is in the construction, the leather quality, and the deliberate restraint of putting almost nothing on the shoe except a gold serial number stamped at the heel.